Welcome to the Podcast Editing and Support Show. My name is Dave. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go. We're going to start the episode right now. Happy to have you here. Let's do this. All right. Welcome back to the podcast. Glad to be back with you. Happy 2025 and all that great stuff. We're looking at implementing a project-based pricing for your podcast services as kind of a foundational spot as far as how to price yourself in the marketplace, how to solidify your offerings, all of that great stuff. We're going to break this out over a few episodes. Today we're going to focus on using a tool to assess the scope of the projects that you're bidding on, that you're putting out there into the market, and 4 things you can do around assessing project scope. This is really going to help with scope creep. That doesn't mean somebody who's very weird who hangs around you while you're trying to work. That's not a scope creep. Scope creep is when people kind of add extras. You know, they pay for a pepperoni pizza, but then they want to put all the other toppings on for free. That's scope creep. So to protect yourself from scope creep, again, not some guy standing in the corner giving the side eye. Scope creep can happen easily if you don't understand the scope of the project that you're bidding on, quoting on, sending out your proposals to clients. You need to understand how to assess your project the right way from the beginning so you know exactly what you're saying is what is being understood from your clients as you build your business. So let's jump into it. Thanks for being here. So podcasteditingandsupport.com is the home for everything we do here on this show. Also, I am the owner of TrueMediaSolutions.ca. I'm wearing the shirt right now, actually. TrueMediaSolutions.ca, and this is where we talk about the services that I offer to my clients, and they're vast and varied and wide in scope, and we do a lot of different things because for the last 5-6 years, I've been doing everything myself for my 8 different shows. So in that, I have been able to do and learn everything I need to do to run my stuff. So now if you're looking for somebody to help you in your journey, I would love to have a conversation with you. You can always find me through podcasteditingandsupport.com, the website for this show, or truemediasolutions.ca. Again, come and check out my shirt. I like it. It's pretty fun. Anyway, that's where I am. That's where you can get in touch with me. My name is Dave. I live in Ontario, Canada, and I love helping people just like you to either start your business as a podcast editor and support person, or as a podcaster to find people who do this for a living and pay them well, keep them part of your team, and watch your podcast grow by offloading the things that you don't have the time or talent or the ability to do, and letting someone else take it for you so that you can focus on things that are more important for your business, your coaching business, your actual business, your family, your sleep. You can do something else while someone else covers all the back end stuff for you and your show. And that's the idea behind the Podcast Editing and Support Show. Thank you for pressing play. We want to talk about assessing the project scope for your podcast and your podcast business. Some things for you to understand and things to put into practice around implementing a project-based pricing structure for your podcast service business. First, I would suggest that you as a podcast editing and support person conduct a thorough client interview. Why is this important? Well, let's talk about it. When it comes to podcast editing and support businesses, conducting thorough client interviews and defining project scope are crucial steps in finding that next new client and solidifying the right podcast editor and support person for you and your show. First, we need to conduct some thorough client interviews. We need to understand the podcast genre, target audience, niche. We need to discuss the client's vision for the podcast, the sound, the style, the tone of the show. We need to inquire about specific editing needs, removing filler words, adding music, content editing. There's a lot of different components to that as well. We also need to ask about desired episode length and release frequency. How often are we releasing the episode? How long are each episode? and explore any additional services needed, like show notes, transcription, artwork, all of that included in your first coffee chat with a new client or with a new podcast editor would be interesting to cover and a good idea as a starting point and a foundation for your conversation. After we've gone through some of the generic foundational things, the next part is to define some project boundaries for the podcaster and the podcast editor and support person. Project boundaries are really important. Again, avoids getting into scope creep and avoids getting into somebody working way harder for less money than originally agreed upon. We understand that things cost money and additions cost money, and this is all part of the agreement and conversation we need at the beginning of the stage of starting working together with somebody. So we define our project boundaries. We need to specify the number of episodes to be edited per month, clarify the turnaround time for each edited episode, how the episode gets to the editor, how much time they have to do the edits, and when it's due to be released to the world. We also need to outline any level of editing required, basic cleanup, all the way through to complete heavy re-editing with lots of elements and lots of technical ability required. Some editors can do it, some can't. Some editors love technical edits, and really the simple edits are not something they're interested in doing. So understanding that right from the beginning is very helpful. And determine if the client needs help with recording, either setting up your microphones and all of that, or learning how to be a better podcaster. As an editing and support person, we can help you to be more efficient on the microphone, which will in turn save you time and money because you don't have to pay for extensive edits, which are costly, time-consuming, and in the end, someone's going to pay for this. So the better you are on the mic, the less money it's going to cost you to work with an editor. As well, we can decide on the formats for raw audio and final deliverables. What do you need and when do you need it? This is something we need to agree on right from the beginning as a podcast editing and support person so that we can deliver the right things at the right time. So nobody is misunderstanding the process. We all understand our due dates and we're accountable to them and we track them. Very important for you to define the project boundaries when you're working with a new client. Make sure you do that and invest the time up front. It'll come back to help you in the future. So the next part in all of this, assessing the project scope, comes down to creating a detailed scope statement. And here's something I would encourage you to look at for your business as you plan out and talk to potential podcasters. Number one, identify the client's main challenges. Example, lack of time, lack of technical skills. Why are they talking to you about potentially hiring you to do the work for them? That's very important for you to understand because now you know the motivation behind the why and why this is happening. That can help you have some clarity as far as what's going to bring value to the person reaching out to you to hire you as an editor. So make sure you establish and figure out what it is that the client is struggling with so that you can be a better resource for them in the process. As well, establish the objectives, like define the measurable goals. For example, improve the audio quality of my podcast, or reduce my editing time, or help me understand how to be a better interviewer. These are all things beyond the ums and ahs that people are looking for in a podcast editing and support person. And you can be that for your community. Understand the objectives. Understand as well the deliverables. List the specific items. For example, an edited audio file, show notes, promotional clips, Instagram clips, TikTok clips, website design, guesting services, on and on and on it goes. A blog, a newsletter, an email newsletter, promotion. You can have so many different elements to what you offer to a client. You need to understand that this is, again, more than ums and ahs. You're there to do more than that. So these are all opportunities to increase your portfolio and give more deliverables and more options to potential clients which will make you more attractive as well. The next part would be around timelines. That's really important to consider. To establish a production schedule aligned with the podcast release dates and requirements. So if you're working with daily podcast episodes, that's one conversation. You're working with a monthly, one episode a month requirements. That's a totally different one. Is it interview based? Do you have multiple voices? There's all kinds of different elements. So understand that as well so that you can meet timelines so you don't overtax yourself. And then the last part around creating a detailed scope statement would include just quality standards, benchmarks for audio quality and consistency. Map it out, document it, agree on it, and that can be the foundation going forward for you and how you do what you do for your clients. The next part around all of this would be to consider the project complexity. When we sit down with clients, there's pre-assumptions both on their part and our part. And what you want to do is you want to remove anything where things don't match. They think they're saying one thing, you think you're hearing something different, and in that creates chaos and confusion, hurt feelings, missed deadlines because we're not speaking the same language. When we talk about creating a business and serving our community, part of what we're doing is to consider the project complexity. A few things to think about here. Goes back to the number of episodes we've talked about. Factor in the regular episodes and any special series, sessions, things they do extra. Example, November is podcast post month, where there's 30 episodes in 30 days. Does your client do that? Do you have the bandwidth? And how do you bill them for 30 episodes in 30 days when you only normally do one a week? That's a big difference. So your one a week payment for November won't cover the 30 episodes in 30 days, even if they're small. That's scope creep. Make sure you understand, have a clear understanding of the frequency with the number of episodes, as well any editing requirements. Assess the need for noise reduction, EQ, compression. Some of these things your podcaster will understand, some of them they won't. And that's the reason they're reaching out to you, so that you can be that source of information, guidance, and expertise, so they don't have to learn how to do all these things. But be very clear and explain what these things do and why they add value to the client. The best podcast editors can go into a file, into a recording, and do all the work and be done, and very hard to establish and understand what they've done because they're so good. If you go to a concert and you see the people running the soundboard, they're usually in the middle of the room, somewhere back at the back of the room, and you won't even notice that they're there. But one mistake, everyone spins around and gives them an evil eye. That's their job, to be there, make it sound great in concert, and to blend into the audience where you don't even notice them. Okay? That's your job, is you need to blend into the background. Don't call attention to yourself, but do all this great work to make your podcaster sound awesome. As a podcaster, you want to find somebody who makes you sound great, better than you can do yourself, or easily can do what you want to do, but you don't have time to do so. The also thing is to look at somebody who can do multi-track editing to determine if separate tracks for host, guests, or music are involved. The more tracks, the more effort, the more work. So if you have a host and 4 guests, that's 5 tracks, plus a music intro, outro, that's 6 tracks. That's a lot of things to consider. That's not a simple edit. 1 voice, 1 track, compared to 6, 7, 8 tracks. I have a few of my podcast episodes that have up to 20 to 25 tracks for one hour recording, because I have all these things going on in the background. Very difficult, a lot of work, but that's the kind of scope that could be involved in some of the more storytelling, narrative podcasts, true crime, anything that has a deep background to it, music, sound effects, environment. That can make things pretty complex. So keep that in mind. And then the additional services to consider the complexity added by transcription, for example, compared to show notes or social assets for whatever website or social platform. These are all additional things that add on to the basic edits for audio, which a lot of people anticipate people can do, but then they try to lump in all the other things as well. The last part is all around customer client feedback. And I want you to plan for potential revisions and the approval process. That needs to be nailed down as well. In the process, you need to understand what is allowed, how many edits, how many fixes, and timelines for that as well. So by thoroughly addressing these aspects, podcast editing businesses can create clear project scopes that set expectations and lead to successful collaborations with clients, which will keep your clients longer, keep them more satisfied, and they'll understand when they come to you with an additional request that this additional request may or may not cost even more money. But you're there to serve them, and you're there to make sure that you don't overwhelm yourself with the extras that just come from nowhere. So avoid the scope creep and make sure that you set up your business the right way. We have more coming up in this episodes around implementing project-based pricing for your podcast services. Got a few more episodes coming up branded around this as a little mini-series. So make sure that you check them out. They'll be linked in on the website and through our YouTube channel. There'll be a separate playlist where all these will be housed. We'd love to get your feedback on this as well. Thanks for listening. Take care and enjoy what you do for podcasters every day. Thanks for listening to the Podcast Editing and Support Show. Visit us at podcasteditingandsupport.com, podcasteditingandsupport.com. We would love to help you find a great podcast editor, or if you want to hire us, we would love to work with you. Podcasteditingandsupport.com. Catch you on the next episode. Take care.